The global gathering for educators and institutions is here. Anthology Together is where inspiration, connection, networking, and EdTech insight and innovation intersect into the premier event destination for the global education community. Registration is open. Go to anthologytogether.com. 3 higher ed authors, 100 plus college and university presidents, dozens of actionable insights for academic leaders. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education, is now available on Amazon. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. And we have done that so many times here on the EdUp Experience, bringing you the best and brightest leaders in higher education or higher ed adjacent industries. Thank you to those of you that have bought our book, Commencement, the Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education, that we released in November of 2022. It's in the hands of thousands of educational leaders across the world. And what did we do? We interviewed we took the first 125 presidents we interviewed on this podcast, and we took everything they had to say about the future of education, and we put it all in this book. It's a big book, but you get through it fast. And it's tells you a lot, and there's a lot of good quotes in there. We want to thank you for your support. We're going to continue. I always joke that my co-founder of the EdUp Experience podcast, Alvin Freitas, now I just saw an invite come through for September. So it gives you some idea of how often I podcast, which I do every day at this time, every day. So if I'm getting something coming across for September, that means we're doing a lot of interviews from now till then. And going along with this theme, you could say the setup that I'm giving you, the 4th ever president we interviewed on this podcast is back. And he's back in a big way. He's going to co-host with me. We'll see how he does. You will be the judge, ladies and gentlemen, listening to this podcast. Here he is. He's the one and only Dr. Michael Horowitz, and he is the president of TCS Education System. Michael, what's going on?
Thank you so much, Joe. I'm excited to be here and return after all these episodes. Our biggest news is we just formally changed our name to the Community Solution Education System. It's a lot of words, and it expresses clearly who we are. And this year we have our 6th university, the University of Western States, joined us. And I'm super excited to be here and learn about Lisa's work at Empire State and her career. I'm a people person.
You know what I love about first-time guest co-hosts too, and I say this almost to every first-time guest co-host I have, is that they almost 100% of the time say the name of my guest before I introduce that guest, which is a rookie mistake, but we always let it go because we're all about mistakes here on EdUp. I have been known to make a few, very few, in fact, very few mistakes. If you've ever listened to this podcast, I'm literally perfect 99% of the time, but every now and then, no, I actually can get my own name wrong from time to time when I do this intro, but I won't get this person's name wrong. I don't think. Here we go. Here she is, our guest. She's your guest today. She's Dr. Lisa Vollendorf. She is president at Empire State University. Lisa, what's going on?
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about Empire State University, which just became a university a couple months ago. So we are the entity formerly known as Empire State College.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, as a product of the SUNY system, I went to SUNY Oneonta for my undergraduate degree. There's a lot of power in the SUNY system, the New York system of state colleges. Tell us about Empire State University, where you are, who you serve, and how you serve them.
Well, this is my favorite topic to talk about. Empire State University was founded in 1971 as the innovative arm of SUNY. So we were created after most of the SUNYs were created, the community colleges, the comprehensive colleges, and the 4 university centers. We were created to meet a need that the leadership at the time recognized was still going to be present. So we were created to serve working adults, people who could not, for whatever reason, attend a traditional 4-year institution. And while SUNYs are located all over the state of New York, there is a SUNY, they say 30 miles away from all people who live outside of the New York metro area. The fact is that people still, even in the 70s, it was recognized that people were not going to be able to go to school or go away to school. So we have been serving adult learners primarily for the last 52 years, going on 53 years. And SUNY Empire then was the leader in distance education, in prior learning assessment, and giving people college credit for work that they had done in the past, not just college credit for college classes they had taken elsewhere. So we've been in the space for decades. We were 50% online already in 2007. And fast forward to 2023, SUNY Empire is now New York's first and only online public university. And we serve around 16,000 students.
Amazing.
Go ahead, Michael. I see you already trying to get in.
I am. That is amazing. It's working adult students is a population that's near and dear to my heart. When colleges bemoan declining demographics, I always say, wait a minute, there are millions of students out there who are working adults or who went to college and didn't complete. I'm real interested in how you're thinking these days about prior learning assessment, because obviously we learn so much in our work, in our family life, and how you apply that at Empire State.
And by the way, what is prior learning assessment? There's somebody listening to this going, huh? You got to tell us what it is.
So SUNY Empire, starting many, many years ago, recognized that the pathway to learning could be assessed through competencies, so through outcomes, and not just based on how many hours a person spent in a college accredited environment in a classroom. So we are really national leaders on prior learning assessment and also assessment of people's life experience. So to give an example, we have a longstanding relationship with the IBEW Local 3 Electricians 3 in Manhattan. And we just graduated 60 people who are apprentices in that program with that union, and they're going to be journey people soon. And they also got their bachelor's degrees with us in labor studies. So we provide an assessment of what they do in their apprenticeship. They have a 2-year apprenticeship. They get 30 credits of college credit toward their bachelor's degree with us. And then we provide them with the balance of their education in a classroom and or online experience. So it speeds their track toward their degree. But fundamentally, what we do is everybody says they like to meet students where they are. And that's the mantra of 21st century education. But very few institutions put the money where the mouth is and actually recognize that every student shows up with their own expertise and skills and their own life experience that really does match up to what we can give credit for in an institutional setting.
Wow. Let me.
You can't handle the truth.
The truth that you said is that everybody wants to meet the student where they are, and few put the money where their mouth is. I could not have said it better. It is absolutely true. It is so easy to say and another thing to do it, because you have to unravel almost. You have to unravel some of the bureaucracies and committees, and you have to look at speed and efficiency and what's the user experience look like instead of what the university experience is going to look from our view at a university. And you come in now, you're almost a year in to your job. How do you assess that, right? Because this is a key component of the value proposition at Empire State University. How do you say, this is who we are, this is what we do, but wait a minute, I've been here a year and now I can see maybe where we have to change some things or do some things. How do you prioritize to make sure that you're, completing that part of the mission?
Thank you for asking me that. I sometimes find it amusing when I hear interviews with new presidents who say that I intend for the first year or 2 years to learn what the institution is about, and then maybe after that, we'll start to set some priorities. We don't have time for that in higher education. And specifically, I'm very passionate about public higher education needing to do better. We need to do more and we need to do better. We need to improve our outcomes. We need to eliminate the equity gaps that exist at every single institution in the country. And we need to recognize that in our country, in the United States of America, we leave 63% of people behind in higher education. Only 37% of people have a bachelor's degree, and that's up 10 percentage points over the past decade, which is wonderful. And we should really sit with that and be proud of that progress. But we should stop bemoaning. I agree with you, Michael. We should stop bemoaning the demographic cliff and the fact that there are fewer K through 12 humans out there in the universe, at least in our universe of public higher ed and overall higher ed in the country. And we should think about all those people who, for whatever reason, have some college, no credential. That's pushing over 40 million people in this country now. And that number is going up radically every year, as you both know. And we need to figure out how to welcome those people back. So we have a new strategic plan that we developed in about a 6-month period here at Empire State. And we are focused, bringing a laser focus to student success in a meaningful way. So truly meeting students where we are. We're looking at academic and inclusive excellence and so forth. We're looking at what really is priority number one for us, which is how to serve more students better, because there are workforce needs. There are social mobility issues that we can help address in the state of New York and beyond. And we are an affordable, high quality option. And for all the people who are leaning into the online space and are trying to lean into the adult learner space, we've been doing this for decades and we're good at it, and we need to be better.
I love your urgency, because I do think that higher education wastes a lot of time in planning and wastes a lot of student and faculty time. One issue we all contend with is the multiple regulators that involve themselves in higher ed. Have you found at Empire State that the path is relatively clear to implement what is really an innovative model of teaching and learning?
I love that question, because in many ways, a public online university is a square peg in a round hole. So we are different from every other SUNY and every other CUNY and every other Cal State. I used to work in the Cal State system, and there is no other public education system that I'm aware of that from its inception designated one campus to be the online high quality arm and to lean into the space that nobody else was even thinking of leaning into. So we have, over the years, had, I would say, we've been able to thread the needle with our accreditors. And now in 2023, everybody in the country is asking the question of how can we serve the so-called non-traditional. You will never hear me say non-traditional, because these are our traditional students, but the non-traditional student population. How can we serve working learners? How can we do prior learning assessment? These are the things that accreditors and all other institutions know we need to be doing well, and we actually do these things well. So we are now being asked to assist in training up other institutions. And I will say that in some cases, it is hard to make the case, because people ask, what is your facilities deferred maintenance? Well, we don't really have deferred maintenance because we have a very light so-called, facilities or infrastructure load, which makes me very happy, because I've only ever worked in traditional residential campus settings. And I love that we are pure and simple focused on academic quality, academic excellence, and true inclusive excellence for a diverse student population.
Oh, yeah.
She said it. I want to go back to just take a step back, because that's such a good question. And it's tied to what you said about not being able to wait. Because if you wait, the public's going to eat us for lunch. And that's all higher ed leaders, right? Because this degree value, non-credit, for credit, don't go to college. You don't need to go to college. You do need to go to college. Very confusing for the average student or consumer to work through everything right now. So waiting actually hurts the industry, because instead of showing value, and figuring out how to crystallize that value. We're just waiting, and and we don't fight back very often in higher ed as much as I'd like. And so I'd use this podcast to do that and allow people to do that, because we do great work and we change lives and so on. Do you think that changes the profile of what a president is for a university? You know, because in the old days, you come in and you go through this listening learning tour and you got to meet everybody. And it's like, okay, by the time you get around to that, not only have you forgotten probably some of the students that have already slipped through the cracks in your area, does it change the profile of the president, or is it make our current presidents have to change? If you know what I'm asking, like, is the current presidential profile right for the future?
I love that question. I think a lot about what we need in our leadership in public education in this country. And it is not what we needed 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So I think you're alluding to that without saying it specifically. So I will say
no,
it.
I could say it specifically too, but yes. Yeah, you're right on.
The presidency today, I think, requires a sense of passion and urgency. And I very clearly see that public higher education not just could do better, but must do better. There is so much that we are not doing well as a collective, and it is not acceptable that we are leaving so many people behind. So I feel a personal passion toward helping us be on a path of continuous improvement, of bold leadership, of innovation. We need to have space for innovation in higher education, and we rarely allow for that space to exist. So one of the things I say often to my team, or when I meet with legislators or union leaders or people who are calling labor commissioner, I met with the New York State labor commissioner recently, and I said, look, throw your ideas, tell us what you need, because we have the ability here at Empire State University to take the need, generate ideas about what we could do and what could be needed, and come back to you and say what we can do to help meet the workforce need. I mean, one example is the state of New York is very rapidly leaning and moving toward, the state of New York is very rapidly leaning toward clean energy. And it should, and it's overdue. And we have a workforce that is not prepared for a clean energy economy. And chips manufacturing is coming to New York State very rapidly. So these are two looming significant opportunities within the economic outlook of the state. And we are not prepared. Our workers are not prepared. But SUNY Empire is prepared to hear that, to be talking with CEOs and labor commissioners and community college presidents, to be hearing what the need is, who's best suited to meet the need, and then what we can be doing to help people anywhere in the state, and frankly, anywhere in the country, because we're online, to gear up to work in the clean energy economy, to gear up to be a manager in chips manufacturing, for example. But if we don't leave the space for the prioritization of innovation, we will never change how we are and what we're doing.
That's a
I
fact.
love your embrace.
That's a fact.
That is a fact. I love your embrace of community, which is so critically important. Why do you think so many colleges and universities are reluctant, fearful, or don't engage their geographic, their professional, their workforce communities in the same way that you just articulated?
I'm pausing just for a moment to think about that question, because I certainly have worked at many institutions that have been both ex-urban and primarily urban serving. And I would say the more obvious the potential relationship between the institution and the surrounding community, the stronger the relationship actually is. So I worked at San Jose State, I worked at Long Beach State, I worked at Wayne State. Those are all smack in the middle of high density urban areas. And it's more obvious to have relationships with local employers. I think the further you are from an urban setting, and which is really how we would describe the majority of our regional comprehensives, then, which are also the institutions that are really are really struggling, right, with the demographic declines of the 18 to 24-year-olds. These are institutions where you don't have high density opportunities for workforce placement. And you really think about town gown in a way that's more relational and less about workforce development and driving the economy both locally and statewide. So I don't know if it's necessarily fear or anxiety. It's really a question of bang for the buck. And it is very difficult to think broadly about how to drive workforce needs if you're not surrounded by a million people like we were in San Jose, or if you don't serve an entire state like we do at Empire State University. So I feel that our institution is uniquely positioned, and therefore we have a unique responsibility to be in conversation with statewide leaders, with industry leaders around the state, to really help drive in any way we can college completion, upward mobility, and economic strength for the state.
You may just have eloquently explained why I love situating our campuses in dense metropolitan areas. I still would say your passion for that engagement, I think sometimes it's reduced to, well, this is about workforce readiness, which it is. It's as if then we're ignoring other elements of education. I don't think they have to be in conflict. You can develop the student, you can teach them liberal arts and make them workforce ready. And arguably, the two will strengthen each other.
Absolutely.
Lisa, what gets you to move across the country, right? I mean, Cali to New York, okay, I get it. You know, a couple miles away from each other. Very different systems of state education, of operations. I mean, you look at Cal and Cal Bright and the I don't know, divisiveness that created in the community college system and so on, to SUNY, to Empire State University that's serving adult students. What sold you, so to speak, on this cross-country transition?
I was sold from the moment that it dawned on me that Empire State University is uniquely positioned, not just within SUNY and not just within New York State and not just within the region, not in the Northeast, but really nationally. We are uniquely positioned to help meet a societal need and to help people who feel that they are failures because they have some college and no credential, to help those folks know that there is an option created for them where they are welcome. It's an option that is affordable, it's online, it's high quality, and that we can help people who feel that the world left them behind know that actually higher education failed them, but we're here to help them feel successful and help them walk across the stage. I was completely taken aback when I started to learn about Empire State University and its incredible impacts that it's had over the decades. We have 95,000 alumni, and many of those in the early years were working moms, they were working parents, they increasingly became people who were working and had kids and were caregivers, but found a way at their pace to make it through their degree. And now what we have in 2023 is a student population that ranges from our recent graduates who were 19 years old in the same ceremony. These two humans walked across the stage, a 19-year-old woman and a 79-year-old woman, both got their degrees at the same commencement ceremony. That's what we do. Nobody else does that, and nobody else sets out to do that. And I want to do more, and I want to do better. And one thing that we're seeing that is mapping onto national trends, but really is very gratifying to all of us at Empire State University, is that now increasingly people under the age of 30 are choosing fully online programs for reasons that we all understand. And they're choosing online programs that actually have quality. So now 40% of our student population at Empire State is under the age of 30.
Excellent.
I'm thinking you're ahead of the curve. I know there's been a small experiment in the Bay Area with Minerva University, teaching younger students in a all online format as they move them around the world. Our system has been mostly graduate, and I do see all of a sudden growth in the online bachelor's degree. And I'm hopeful, what you're saying makes me very hopeful that there are going to be many digital age young people who like the idea of attending college fully in this way, maybe partially en route to something else. It's a very interesting and rapid shift, I think, that you're describing.
Their premier EdTech event is right around the corner.
Epic.
Anthology Together is the destination for visionaries, educators, and learners ready to unleash the power of education technology. EdUp will be on site for the thought-provoking keynotes, peer-driven discussions, and unparalleled networking opportunities. We guarantee you will leave inspired and connected. You don't want to miss it. Book your tickets to Nashville for AT23, July 17th to July 20th. Register today at anthologytogether.com. You know that the world of higher education is experiencing evolutions and revolutions. You want to be part of the progress. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education with insights from more than 100 college and university presidents, will show you how. Get your copy of Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education now on Amazon right away. We think you're going to love it. It's
Amazing.
I wanted to tag on to that. When you make this move for yourself in your career, you know, presidential tenure these days is a lot shorter. It's documented to be a lot shorter than it was, 6 years down to 4, sometimes 3 too. I would imagine there's for when you're making a move, you're really making it with intention, right? Because even just funding models, state funding models, you could be in an institution that's underfunded, but in the state system, you don't want a zombie university. So you don't just take a university to take a university. You have to take something that has potential, that excites you, right? It has to like just boil the passion within inside you. This intention of moving cross country and taking on Empire State University that you saw being well positioned, it's not to take it because you got another presidential job in front of you, right? It's how do I take this and create legacy, create sustainable change? What are your thoughts around that?
So I want to acknowledge, because you've said it a couple of times, it's a big move to move from California with, I should say, a husband who's from Santa Barbara, California, and thinks that anything outside of the temperature range of 67 to 73 is unpleasant.
Yeah.
So that's my personal scenario. And my amazing husband, when I told him I was on fire for the mission and the impacts of SUNY Empire, he said to me, well, we're going. And I said, well, do you think we should?
Name?
His name's Scott.
Scott, shout out to Scott, man.
Scott out.
Good work.
Yeah,
buddy.
we need Dr. Voti needs a big shout out because he said yes, and to his credit, we weren't sure. We had never even been to Saratoga Springs, New York. We'd only ever been to Manhattan and JFK, like many people who live on the West Coast. So I took the job here without ever having visited any of our locations, and certainly not our headquarters here in Saratoga Springs. So we took a leap of faith as a family, but we did it because what SUNY Empire stands for is really the core for me of the value of public higher education. We stand for access, we stand for affordability, we stand for quality, and we stand for inclusion. So we will not abide by poor student outcomes in high failure rate classes, and we have leaned into that. And we have evidence-driven, really great collaborative groups working on how to make improvements as we keep moving semester over semester. We have universal course design that is, for my money, the gold standard. We take what we learn from the analytics in our learning management system year over year, and we improve the course design. And then the faculty all come together to ensure that that the tweaks that we're making are in service to them, to the discipline, to the classes, to the students. We are the #1 military public let me back up and say that correctly. We serve more military, veteran military affiliated students than any other public university in the state of New York. And we also are the only in the nation, the only autism supportive institution of higher education. And these are all spaces we should be in, and we want to do more and we want to do better for those students.
That is outstanding. Multiple shout outs there, including to your husband, because the support of family and partners is often so critical to excellence in serving as a president. I'm curious, given the format and the online approach, how does that change timeframes that we're so used to in higher education, the traditional length of a course or of a degree? Is there an opportunity for the Empire State student, once they've done their prior learning assessment, if they do that, to control in some way the pace and ideally shorten the time to degree?
I love that question because this is really the crux of the matter, because financial aid in this country, it is my dream. And if you ever do a show on financial aid, I would love to be on that. Financial aid is broken. Financial aid is created for traditional 4-year students who go off to residential school, are only in school for 4 years, and they blow through their aid at a pace that is correct. And at the end of the day, we tie it up neatly and off they go. Well, as we know from the student debt crisis, that is not how it works. That is not how human behavior is in this country vis-a-vis education. So what we have at Empire is a unique situation whereby we take up to 79 lower division credits. And that's separate from, we might give you credits for your prior learning that you did as an apprentice or in your technical training that you did at name your company, whatever that is. But we also will take up to 79 academic credits at the lower division level, plus an additional semester, an additional 15 upper division credits towards your degree. So our students on average come to us with 47 credits and 13 prior learning credits that we give them. So they come in with, this is in the last 3 years, they come in with on average 60 credits with that split. Those students also come in having burned through about 1/3 of their financial aid eligibility, because people don't recognize when they take a class here and a class there and they use their aid, they're actually, because aid is both money and time, they're using up their eligibility, but not maximizing what that eligibility is. So we make a very concerted effort to help people understand from the beginning what the pace of using your aid should be for you to not run out of aid before you complete your degree. But most people are in a situation where they've run through so much of their aid that they actually do end up not having aid to complete. So with that in mind, we have what I would call 3 trimesters. We run continuously, we run 12 months, and we run a fall semester, a spring semester, and a summer term. And in each of those, we have 8-week blocks as well. So you can do your 15 or your traditional, or you can do 8. And it also means you can be applying to get in. You only have to wait that amount of time until you can start your coursework. So this, again, to me, is one of the things we do extremely well at SUNY Empire, because it maps onto working people's lives, as opposed to the old academic calendar that maps onto agriculture, which most of us are not actually engaged in.
You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you.
Lots of great numbers in there. Everybody learned something. What I want to double down on that you said, a couple of things. Number one, we talk about financial aid a lot. And no one understands max aggregates and loan periods as a student. They have no clue what that means. Only until they go to enroll and financial aid comes back and says, I'm sorry, you're in a loan period. You have to wait 3 months before you can get more financial aid. What does that do? Hurts. You're not going to get the student back. Who knows if they ever go back to school? Your retention rate is affected. Your graduation rates are affected. I mean, there's so many things that financial aid or lack of awareness around financial aid affects. But what you said in that, and one of the key components when you talk about meet a student where they are, is intake periods. If you're going to serve the adult population and in any way you tell them they have to wait, these are adults. Like, they don't wait. They don't wait for their Amazon package. We don't wait to book the airline flight. We don't wait to transfer money through our bank accounts. We don't wait. So if you are going to serve this population, you have to do it in such a way around an academic calendar, as you were saying, Michael, where you're able to allow that student a choice to speed up or slow down, because they're going to make it whether those things exist, and then you're going to be chasing, and you don't want to be chasing. And that's just such a key thing that people miss who are trying to serve the adult market. If you try to do it in a traditional academic calendar without multiple intake periods, you're just going to not serve a large part of that population.
Absolutely. Right? I think that going back to what you said earlier with regard to where are we in higher education and where do we need to be? I mean, we're essentially talking about a gap, looking at what the gap analysis is here. I feel that higher education from top to bottom, from soup to nuts, really needs to be rethought in terms of what we're actually trying to accomplish. Because we are not trying to accomplish what it was originally designed for. We're not trying to educate a very small elite group of men toward a liberal arts education only, which I agree with what you said, Michael. Of course, I'm a humanist by training. And of course, liberal arts should be the foundation of everything we do in higher education in the United States. That's our hallmark. That said, that population is getting its degrees primarily at elite liberal arts institutions that are much designed to be for them. And the rest of the population needs to be served by systems and institutions and federal systems, including financial aid, including IPEDS, which is the organization that gathers all of our data in a very prescribed way and in a way that is designed to speak only to first-time, full-time student graduation rates. It is my dream that we can together somehow convince the Department of Education and the federal government that these things are broken, they're outdated, they're elitist, and they are not inclusive of the population that we know we want to serve in higher education in this country.
Do you have a sense of how much of your time and energy should be spent on those big national issues, which are big hills to climb, big boulders to move, and how much you should devote just knocking out of the park as you're doing at Empire State?
I'll answer for you, Lisa.
100%.
On both, right?
150% on both, which adds up to 300, which is about the level of commitment I like to bring to my work. So it seems like a good number. I think they're intertwined. Yeah, these things are intertwined, aren't they? I mean, when I meet with legislators and, people who run large corporations or union leaders, and they're saying, we don't have enough people to hire, we have a workforce crisis, our people don't have the skills they need. I say to them, I need your help, because there are things that are major impediments that come from on high. So for an example, I would love in this country for all of us to be able to say that we serve our military and veteran students with integrity, but we can't all say that. And part of it is we can't, because of the rules that were handed down after the grotesque exploitation of military and veterans who were eligible for the post 9/11 GI Bill. When that came out, there was a lot of exploitation of veterans. Yikes. And people were driven into debt. People who served our country in a very difficult time with regard to where they were deployed. These are people we thanked by allowing them to be driven into debt and exploited principally by for-profit institutions. That is unacceptable. My question is, why was that GI Bill allowed to be used at for-profit institutions? Let's start there. I don't understand why we enable that with our financial aid and our GI bills. Number two, the rules that are in place now, there's a 3-touch rule that requires that we only interact with potential military and veteran students up to 3 times, which means it's almost impossible to actually have good education going on for that population about what their options are, because it is hard to support them, because in supporting them, the institution uses up one of its opportunities to educate them and potentially recruit them to that institution. These are big questions that really need to change at the federal level. But my experience has been people, even at the state level, don't have an awareness of those impediments. And then they ask, why aren't we serving more military and veteran students? We'll see point 1, we can't. So we need this all to be, we're all educators. I got into education because I think education is the way that we can change the world for the better. But it also means that we have to be tireless in our efforts to educate those around us so they understand what the issues are.
You have a really wide lens on these issues. In my experience, we interact with officials that have a specific lens. This is how we implement financial aid. So I love the intensity that you're bringing to this conversation. And I completely agree with you about the exploitation of military and veteran and adult students.
Outrageous.
Outrageous.
To your point, if you think about that, because I know there are schools that, I know this because I talked to so many, those rules that you brought up for military, it's easy not to follow them, right? So you have to have integrity in the first place these are the rules that have been handed down, whether it's yellow ribbon or principles of excellence or all these things, these are what we're going to follow. But what about that spam filter? Now, you might even try to get a hold of a student and it hits their spam email, and they may not even know you tried to contact them, may never even find out, because you can only get 3 chances. And that's 3 slim chances of what it takes to communicate with people. I don't know how many people answer their phone or answer their email. I mean, so you have to be like literally like an innovator on how to contact people, like leave the voicemail that's transcribed, on your iPhone so that someone can read the transcribed voicemail. It takes a lot more strategy than, hey, let's just contact the student over 2 weeks until they get that contact. Because what's the average marketing rule? It takes like 7 times to see something before you make a buying decision. So to your point, Lisa, it's a limiting factor when you're trying to help a population that's a result of bad actors, right? It's that you penalize everybody else for something that happened by a few others, individual institutions. Definitely tough work. Michael, before we go to our final 2 questions, do you have any other thoughts or questions for Lisa?
I do. How could we not? You just touched on technology in a way. So I have one. We're living in this year where any of us can now generate a very credible first draft of a written piece with AI. And at our medical school, we don't have cadavers, and the students can see into the human body in a hologram. How are you and your faculty thinking about this rapid change that seems upon us in the immediate moment?
So this is the trillion-dollar question probably for all of us. I think that fundamentally how we view this at Empire State is we're an institution that was created to be innovative. The founding president lives down the street here in Saratoga Springs, and he has said to me a couple of times, we did not know what this would be, but we knew it was important to create a university in service to everybody else. So we're using that guiding principle as we have a large task force of faculty, staff, IT folks, really looking at what ChatGPT most immediately should be informing us to do with regard to pedagogy, even just for the upcoming terms. And we're working on really educating ourselves to what's coming. I recently attended a conference sponsored by EAB at Dreamscape in Los Angeles, in my old stomping grounds. And Dreamscape is a virtual reality company that has partnered with Arizona State, and they have a whole biology sequence now that they're rolling out with VR. And it's clear that technology will continue to drive a divide between the haves and the have-nots. And that's concerning to me as someone who has always chosen to work at comprehensive public institutions that are underfunded. And, we're scrappy, but we try to make the most with what we do and with what we have. And part of that is trying to get ahead of the game with regard to what's coming in technology. And nobody knows. But what we do know is that if we don't integrate technology into how we teach and how we interact with our students, then there's really no point in being a high quality public institution, regardless of whether you're online or not. So I think that is a given now, that as the changes come, we are really leaning into integrating them, educating ourselves to them, and working with our students in many cases who know much more about any of this than we do.
You make a really good point about the haves and the have-nots when no one said it in quite that way before, but if you think about the error margin, right? If I've got lots of money and I can invest in lots of technologies, I'm going to get it right eventually. And if I don't,
Yes.
I might invest more than I want to, but I'm going to get it right eventually. Versus I'm scrappy. I have these limiting funds, so I've got to make a really right choice. And the pressure on that decision making being totally different than R&D, as it were, or trial and error.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it was interesting for me to be in the room with 40 other presidents, some of whom were at quite well-funded institutions. So there were 3 people in the room who were looking at building out $500 million with a B dollar VR laboratories for their students in the next 2 years.
It's fuzzy math.
It's fuzzy math, and somehow wherever I choose to work, we end up on the negative side of that math. But fundamentally, it's our job, I think, in public education to find the way to diminish those equity gaps, to diminish those divides, bridge those divides. And it's not easy work, and there aren't easy answers. But if we don't do it, nobody else will do it. And the ways in which we leave rural America behind right now, the ways in which we leave certain populations behind because they do not find higher education accessible to them and they don't thrive, that's on us to fix. And I feel that Empire State University really is in some ways uniquely positioned to take on those issues and to think through them and to deliver in ways that many institutions aren't, because they haven't been thinking about these things for very long.
Great point. And I want to give you the microphone to end this, Lisa. Number 1, what did you not say about Empire State University that you would like to say or double down on? I like an open mic moment. No question. Here's the microphone, Lisa. Say whatever you want. And if you can, at the end of that or in the middle of it, or even if you want to take these out of order, tell us what you see for the future of higher education.
What I want to say about Empire State University is that this is a university that is positioned to help be the completion arm, not just for SUNY and not just for CUNY, but really for other state systems and for other institutions, whether public or private, because we're in the business of serving multiple generations of students at any given time. And we're in the business of adapting to what is needed in the workforce, and what people want from higher education is what we are able to deliver to them, because we can individualize their programs if that's what they want. So we offer such a wide breadth of academic opportunities to people who may have only nearly completed their associate, or may have only taken a certificate, or may have taken 3 classes along with their internship, and they walked away with no credential. We're here for that person. We're here for that population. And I would love to be in conversation with other presidents, with people who run large companies, who run unions, who have workforce development needs, because I want people who feel that they've been left behind and shut out to know there's a place for them, because that is how we can drive social mobility and economic opportunity for all and not just the few. And I think the future of higher education is hard really to determine, because it's going to take more than just a few presidents, more than just a few institutions changing our way of being to really see higher education thriving a decade out. There is so much need in this country to provide more inclusive, accessible, high quality education. And there's so much opportunity for us to do that better and well. And I think the future is bright insofar as everybody has an understanding that what we used to do is not good enough. And everybody understands that it is not acceptable for us to have equity gaps between students of color and other students, or first gen and Pell eligible and other students. We have to eliminate those equity gaps. And to do that, we have to think differently, we have to teach differently, and all of our operations and processes have to be different. And they have to be, to your point, Joe, they have to be student focused and student driven. And I think we're on that path. And that gives me hope. And frankly, education is one of the few things that gives me hope often. And certainly when I read the news, I just get a little bit sad sometimes. But we have to believe that through education, we're driving personal fulfillment, community strength, family strength, the next generation of opportunity. But fundamentally, what we're driving toward is a society in which there is hope for more equity and more access and more inclusion.
Wow. Dr. Horowitz, what'd you think of this first podcasting gig with me here?
I love doing it. I think interviewing Dr. Lisa Vollendorf could be a 20 episode, series. I think we just scratched the surface. So I loved it. Your energy is infectious, Joe. And Lisa, your passion and your sense of urgency is just phenomenal. It's just I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do with your presidency.
I got to tell you, Lisa, one thing I noticed about you, there's this authenticity factor. I've interviewed literally 200, I don't know how many presidents, something. And there's talking points, and then there's authentic points. And everything that you gave, I felt, was 100%. You literally believe it from the bottom of your bones and the center of your heart. And I love that about you, because it is refreshing, and not even refreshing, but I want to walk away over here and go do something. You got me.
Excellent.
You got me ready to do something.
Yeah, I have 8 things I want to talk to people about.
I know. Well,
Wonderful.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we outro my guest, I got to outro my amazing guest co-host. He was number 4. He'll be back as a co-host. I think I got you back again a bunch of times. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Michael Horowitz, President of the Community Solution Education System. Michael, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And my guest today, your guest today, she has put some serious insight on the table for you to take away and go make your team more urgent about the mission within higher education. Here she is. She's Dr. Lisa Vollendorf. She's president at Empire State University. Lisa, did you enjoy your time here on the podcast today?
I love my time, and I just want to make a pitch for the thing I miss most about California is wintertime citrus. So I would not turn down a box of oranges next December from anyone who wants to partner with Empire State University.
Live in the now!
With that, ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Now, what can you expect at AT23? That's Anthology Together 2023. Well, expect to look into the future, expand your network, and explore solutions with experts. You're going to hear from industry thought leaders. You're going to connect with countless opportunities and people representing different institutions across the globe. You might even get to test out some new tech and help drive future Anthology technology. That's right, Anthology Together. Registration is open at anthologytogether.com. It's time to
Level up.
the beginning of a new era in higher education begins with you. Order your copy of Commencement, The Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education by Kate Colbert, Dr. Joseph Lucio, with contributions by Elvin Freitas. It's higher education's must-read book of 2022. Discover how you can seize the moment to change higher education forever. Commencement, The Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education, now available on Amazon. For bulk orders, contact Kate, Joe, or Elvin.